Welcome back to the Reeves Museum. Mr. and Mrs. Reeves and family all appeared to have a love of music, and this is obvious with the many instruments found throughout the home. Join us today as we take a look at a few of these.
In the back corner of the ballroom stands the Reeves family's pump organ. The pump organ, also known as reed organs, were first made in the 1840s. The organ generates sound as airflow is pumped past a vibrating piece of thin metal in a frame. This piece of metal is called a reed. In the late 18 and early 1900s, pump organs were more common in homes than pianos due to the cost. Pump organs could be purchased for $200. Pianos were closer to $1,500. Our organ has 73 keys and 12 stops and was produced by the Cottage Organ Company in Ottawa, Illinois.
In 1894, the Regina Music Box Company, under Polyphon, was started in the United States. By this time, the music boxes had gone from single cylinders dotted with metal pins to interchangeable discs. A music box works with a rotating drum or cylinder that has raised bumps or pins. As this cylinder rotates, these bumps hit a comb with metal teeth. The longer the teeth, the lower the sound. Think of a ruler hanging on the edge of the counter. If there's more of the ruler hanging off, or if it is longer, it makes a lower sound. Less of the ruler or shorter, and it makes a higher sound. Eventually, the rotating drums were replaced with discs, which could be changed for different tunes. The Regina Company produced over 100,000 music boxes between 1892 and 1920. At the turn of the century, the company grossed $2 million a year, at a time when a loaf of bread was 1 penny and a bank teller made about $7 a week. The least expensive player was $12, about $300 today. Regina dropped the name Music Box in 1902 due to losing popularity to the phonograph. In 1903, the Regina Company made their first vacuum cleaner. The phonograph was invented by Thomas Edison in 1877. Some people think of a phonograph as being a record player, but Merriam-Webster defines a phonograph as an instrument for reproducing sounds by means of the vibration of a stylus or needle following a spiral groove on a revolving disc or cylinder. So it is a record player, but it's much more. In 1877, Thomas Edison was working on a machine to transcribe messages onto paper tape, which could then be sent over the telegraph. He experimented by using a diaphragm which had a point that would make indentations against rapidly moving paper. Then he tried using a metal cylinder instead of paper, with tin foil wrapped around the cylinder. The machine had 2 needles, one for recording and one for playing back. The novelty wore off, and Edison did not work on the phonograph for a while, and instead turned his attention to inventing the incandescent light bulb. But since he quit working on it, others started. In 1880, Alexander Graham Bell won $10,000 for his invention of the telephone in 1876. He set up a laboratory to work on electrical and acoustical research. Bell and his associates replaced the tin foil on the cylinders with wax and changed the needles. They patented this machine as the graphophone. Edison and Bell went back and forth over the years, improving on the design. The Blue Amberol records were made from 1912 to 1929 and could play as long as 4 minutes 45 seconds. Previously, the records only played about 2 minutes of music. The Blue Amberol cylinders were numbered, starting with 1501 in 1912 and went through 5719 in 1929. This was their popular and sacred music series. Interestingly, The earlier produced blue cylinders had better audio quality because the later cylinders were created using a process called dubbing. From January of 1915 on, Edison, who was working on the quality of diamond disc phonograph records, would record on the cylinder from a record. Think back to holding up a cassette to the radio to record your favorite song. Same idea.
In the drawing room of the Reeves home is a beautiful square grand piano. Also called coffin or box pianos, these pianos are unique because the strings run perpendicular or left to right of the keyboard. The purchase price for a new square grand piano in the 1870s was approximately $1,200. Today, that is equivalent to $28,000. The keyboard of the square grand is smaller than other pianos. Our square grand has 85 keys. A regular piano today has 88 keys. Our piano was manufactured by the Hazelton Brothers Piano Company, who were in business from 1840 until the late 1950s. Our piano was built between 1875 and 1877 and was purchased from Henry Worcester in New Philadelphia. Square grand pianos can have a harp-like sound because the hammers that hit the strings are covered with leather, not felt, as leather was more available at the time. In the ballroom, we have 3 Victrolas. Victrolas were a type of phonograph made to look like a piece of furniture. Victrolas were made by the Victor Talking Machine Company. They were based in Camden, New Jersey from 1901 until 1929 when they were sold to RCA. Victrolas play music off of flat records that were 12 inches in diameter and made from shellac. Shellac consisted of a number of compounds, including the juice from ground-up beetles. The records were 78 RPM, or revolutions per minute, and played about 3 minutes of music per side. Victrolas were very popular, and approximately 7 million were manufactured by the time RCA purchased the company. You could buy a new Victrola for about $15, which would be $275 today.
In the ballroom of the Reeves Museum, you'll find one of our oldest musical instruments, the Aeolian Company's pianola. Our pianola was produced in the mid to late 1890s. According to the Pianola Institute, the very first pianola was built in early 1895 by Edwin Voti in a workshop at his home in Detroit. The first commercial use of the pianola trademark occurred on 15 January 1898, and by autumn of that year, production in Detroit had started in earnest, with instruments being sold by the Aeolian Company in New York and elsewhere in the USA. The export of pianolas to Europe began in 1899, and even Queen Victoria owned a pianola for the last 2 years of her life. The rest of the world followed very quickly, and Australia definitely took the prize for the most interesting means of transport. Piano players actually predate player pianos, because most musically inclined people already owned a piano and did not want to purchase another complete upright or grand simply to obtain the yet unproven role-playing option. Like most other piano players, the pianola worked by suction, created by foot pedals, and it played 65 notes of the piano, losing about an octave at each end of the compass.
In 1901, Melville Clark invented the first player piano, in which the piano and the player mechanism were one complete unit and could play all 88 keys of the piano. The player piano we have in the carriage house was manufactured by the Merrill Piano Company of Boston.